Stop trying to control people, make them need you instead. Power isn't loud, it's when your absence causes chaos. True power comes from making others rely on you more than you rely on them. As long as you can, this principle is not about domination through fear, but about creating a kind of quiet leverage that keeps you at the center of decisions, opportunities, and influence. When others depend on you, they start to shape their lives, their work, and even their thinking around your presence. Your absence becomes disruptive, and that is where power lives, in the discomfort they feel at the thought of losing you. The person who can walk away at any moment but chooses to stay holds a different kind of weight. That freedom is what makes the other side careful, attentive, even deferential. This requires patience because you do not build reliance overnight. You cultivate it by solving problems no one else can solve, by showing up where others fail, by becoming the person who turns chaos into order. Over time, you stop being just another option and become the option. The moment people realize that losing you means losing stability, losing progress, or losing access to something they value, they begin to protect you. Even when you are not asking for protection, they begin to check their tone, reconsider their decisions, and weigh the cost of pushing you away. The key is to maintain a delicate balance. If you make them too dependent too quickly, they might resent you or try to break free. If you make yourself too available, they might take you for granted. The art is in holding back just enough that they keep coming back for more. You let them feel the benefit of your presence, then occasionally remind them, by strategic absence or refusal, of what it feels like when you are not there. This contrast makes them value you more deeply. Machiavelli understood that people are driven by need far more than loyalty. If they do not need you, they may respect you today and betray you tomorrow. But when they need you, betrayal becomes expensive. Not impossible, but too costly for them to risk. This is where your real influence is forged, not in titles or status, but in necessity. They may not even like you, but they will still keep you close because losing you threatens their own survival or success. The mistake many make is reversing this equation. They rely too heavily on others for approval, security, or validation. That kind of dependence puts you in a weak position where you must constantly appease, beg, or compromise just to keep your place. Instead, you must make sure that as long as possible, the reliance flows toward you and not away from you. When you are the source of solutions, of clarity, of value, you do not need to beg for space. Space is given to you. This is the difference between those who are replaceable and those who are indispensable. Replaceable people compete, scramble, and fight to be seen. Indispensable people are sought after, consulted, and protected. When you live by this principle, making others rely on you more than you rely on them, you stop being at the mercy of circumstances. You become the circumstance others must adapt to. Dependency must be cultivated carefully, never forced, because real power lies in the voluntary reliance of others, not in their coerced obedience. When people feel forced to depend on you, they begin plotting the day they can escape you. But when they grow to rely on you naturally, they defend that reliance, protect it, and even strengthen it themselves. This is why dependency must be a slow, deliberate process. It is not about locking someone into a cage, but about building a bridge they cross so often that one day they cannot imagine living on the other side. If you try to force people into needing you, they resist, they rebel. They may comply on the surface, but their heart will secretly look for an alternative, a replacement, a way out. What you want is not obedience but attachment, not a chain, but an invisible thread that pulls them back toward you again. And cultivating dependency begins with understanding what people truly lack, not what they say they lack, but what they actually crave beneath their words. It might be security, direction, validation, resources, insight, or even just calmness in the middle of their chaos. Your job is to find that missing piece and supply it consistently enough that they begin to associate you with relief. This cannot be done recklessly. Give too much too soon, and they take you for granted. Give too little, and they never feel your presence. You must offer just enough to make them feel progress, just enough that their life improves because you are in it. Over time, they will connect you with the feeling of safety, success, or clarity. That emotional bond is far more powerful than a logical agreement, because emotions are what bind people to one another. Machiavelli warned that power gained too aggressively leads to resentment. The same applies here. If you try to dominate people into needing you, they will see you as a threat, not an ally. Instead, become so useful that choosing you feels natural, even effortless. When they depend on you because it makes their life easier, they become willing participants in their own reliance. They no longer feel trapped, they feel supported, and people protect what supports them. They will keep you close, not because they fear punishment, but because they fear losing what you provide. That is how the dependency trap works, not through force, but through necessity. You must also learn when to hold back, because scarcity strengthens attachment. If you solve every problem too quickly, they never feel the weight of what you are saving them from. If you are too available, too eager, they never feel the risk of losing you. But if you allow them to experience a little discomfort without you, they will learn the contrast between a world with you and a world without you. This contrast is what deepens reliance. They begin to notice how much smoother things are when you are present, and how costly mistakes become when you are absent. Each time they feel this difference, the invisible thread of dependency grows thicker. At the same time, you must avoid creating a toxic dynamic. If the dependency feels like manipulation, you will create resistance. Your goal is to elevate the relationship, not suffocate it. True cultivated dependency should make them stronger in some ways while still keeping you central to their program. For instance, you might empower them to take action, but ensure that they still need your insight before making the final move. This way, you are not weakening them, you are simply weaving yourself into the process, so deeply that removing you would destabilize everything. This approach also demands discipline from you. When you see someone beginning to rely on you, it is tempting to tighten the grip, to exploit it too soon. But if you demand too much before the dependency has matured, you risk breaking the bond. Instead, you must remain patient and continue providing value until their reliance becomes second nature. Only then can you shape their decisions, influence their actions, and guide outcomes without resistance. Consider relationships in business or politics. The most powerful figures are not those who shout commands, but those whose advice is sought voluntarily, whose presence is requested, because progress seems impossible without them. This kind of influence cannot be it is built through reliability, competence, and subtle reinforcement of your importance. Each favor you do, each problem you solve, each time you step in where no one else could, you lay another brick in the foundation of dependency. Over time, that foundation becomes so strong that removing you would mean tearing the whole structure apart. You must also understand that dependency is not just about skills, it is about psychology. People do not simply rely on what you do, they rely on how you make them feel. If they feel more confident, more capable, more respected in your presence, they will cling to you, even when they could technically do without you. Humans are emotional creatures, and their loyalty often follows those who give them emotional stability. If you can make someone feel seen, understood, and secure while still maintaining your own boundaries, you will create a reliance they will not want to escape. The art of cultivating dependency carefully is in always keeping the relationship voluntary. even when it is not entirely equal. They must feel that choosing you is still their decision, even when their choices have narrowed, because of how much they rely on you. You are not their jailer, you are their anchor, and an anchor does not pull the ship, it simply makes the ship unwilling to drift too far away. When done right, dependency becomes self-reinforcing. The more they rely on you, the more they seek you out. The more they seek you out, the more opportunities you have to prove your value. And the more value you prove, the deeper the reliance grows. This cycle is what builds lasting influence, not sudden domination, but gradual entanglement. By the time they realize how much they depend on you, it is already too late to separate cleanly. You have become a fixture in their lives, and that is where true, lasting power resides. Your value increases when you are rare, not when you are easily replaced, because scarcity is what drives people to protect, pursue, and prioritize what they want. If something is everywhere, if it is easily accessible and endlessly available, people stop seeing it as special. It becomes ordinary, background noise, something they feel entitled to rather than something they must earn or fight to keep. This is why the most powerful individuals in history, the most influential thinkers, the most sought-after advisors, were not those who offered themselves to everyone freely, but those who held their presence, their skills, and their attention like something precious. Rarity creates demand. Demand creates respect, and respect creates leverage. When you are hard to replace, people negotiate with you, accommodate you, and think twice before mistreating you. When you are easy to replace, they take you for granted and discard you without hesitation. Becoming rare is not about being distant for the sake of distance. It is about becoming someone who offers something that cannot be found anywhere else. This might be a unique combination of skills, a certain insight, a temperament, or a presence that makes things run smoother when you are around. The rarity is not just in what you can do, but in who you are when you do it. There may be other people with similar skills, but they cannot replicate your exact mixture of perspective, timing, and delivery. This is why true rarity is cultivated deliberately. You refine what you are good at, you sharpen it until it cuts through the noise, and then you reveal it selectively. When others experience it, they realize they cannot simply go to someone else and get the same result. That is when your value multiplies. Think about the way people treat time with someone whose schedule is always open compared to someone whose time is limited. The first person is taken for granted. I can see them anytime. The second person is treated with more seriousness. If I have the chance to see them, I must make it count. The same principle applies to your presence. If you are always available, always giving, always saying yes, people stop valuing what you bring. They consume it without thought because there is no cost, no difficulty in getting it. But if you create moments of intentional scarcity, if you control how much of yourself is offered and when, your presence feels like an opportunity. People prepare for you, they appreciate the moment, they remember it. This is why saying no is so powerful. Every time you refuse something that does not serve your long-term strategy, you increase the weight of the moments you say yes. If you are selective, people know that when you give your time, your help, or your approval, it means something. And when it means something, they hold on to it longer. They respect it more. Your yes becomes an event, not a default setting. This is how rarity turns into value, by making what you offer cost something, even if that cost is just patience, effort, or alignment with your standard. In The Prince, Machiavelli reminds us that men are quick to forget favors but slow to forgive harm. This tells us something about human nature. If what you give is common, they forget it, but if what you give is rare, they remember it. You must position yourself so that what you contribute is never forgettable. If you are easily replaced, they will not fight to keep you. If you are unique, they will go to great lengths to keep you near. That uniqueness does not have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is subtle, even quiet, but it must be irreplaceable. One way to increase your rarity is through mastery. Become so good at what you do that even if others attempt to copy you, they fall short. People trust those who can deliver results consistently, and mastery is what guarantees that trust. But mastery alone is not enough. You must also be seen as rare. If you master a skill, but give it away recklessly to anyone who asks, you dilute your own value. A master craftsman does not sell his work cheaply, not because he is arrogant, but because he understands what it took to reach that level. You must treat your presence the same way, as something that cost you years to refine. The world may try to pull at you, to consume you, but you must remain disciplined enough to reveal your value strategically. Rarity also requires you to differentiate yourself from the crowd. If you blend in too much, if you do what everyone else is doing, people will always assume they can find another version of you. This is why originality is dangerous and powerful. It makes you impossible to replicate. The rarest people are those who see the world differently and act on it. Those who think a step ahead. Those who refuse to follow the script written for them. Their difference unsettles some and inspires others, but it always commands attention. The rare person cannot be ignored. But rarity is not just about being admired, it is about being missed. The true test of value is not what people say when you are present, but what they feel when you are absent. If your absence is barely noticed, you are not yet rare. If your absence creates tension, disruption, or a sense of loss, you have achieved rarity. This is why you must occasionally remove yourself, create space, let people experience life without you, not out of spite, but to remind them of the difference you make. Each time they feel that difference, your value rises in their mind. Scarcity forces others to invest more. When you are rare, they think about how to keep you, how to earn more of your time, how to stay in your good graces. They approach you with more respect, because they know there is a cost to losing you. You are no longer at the mercy of their moods, because they know they cannot easily replace what you bring. This is how rarity transforms into quiet power. It reverses the dynamic, so that they compete for you, rather than you competing for them. When you understand this principle, you stop trying to be everywhere, to please everyone, to say yes to every request. Instead, you focus on sharpening your edge, and offering it where it matters most. You allow your absence to speak as loudly as your presence, and over time, you transform from being just another option, into the only option that matters. That is when you become truly valuable, not because you shouted the loudest, but because you became the one thing they cannot easily find again. The goal is not control, but quiet influence through necessity, because control is fragile and breeds rebellion, while influence built through necessity endures and deepens over time. When you try to control people openly, you trigger their natural resistance. No one likes to feel dominated, and even those who comply on the surface will often harbor resentment and look for opportunities to escape. Control forces obedience, but it rarely earns loyalty. Influence, on the other hand, is subtle. It works not by coercing someone's actions, but by shaping the environment, so that the actions you desire become the most natural choice they can make. Necessity is the most powerful tool for this, because when people feel that they must act in a certain way to keep their lives running smoothly, they do so willingly, or at least without active resistance. They convince themselves it was their idea, and that is the kind of compliance that lasts. Quiet influence is far more elegant than open control, because it allows the other person to preserve their sense of freedom. When someone feels they are choosing to follow your lead rather than being forced to, they are less likely to rebel. This is the secret of necessity. It does not shout commands. It simply makes every other option costly. You do not demand loyalty. You make disloyalty expensive. You do not insist they follow your advice. You make ignoring your advice risky. Over time, they start to align their decisions with yours, not because you forced them,
but because it feels dangerous not to. That is the difference between holding someone by the throat and holding them by their needs. One breeds hatred, the other breeds dependence. To master quiet influence, you must first understand what people need most. Every person is ruled by their own version of necessity. Some crave stability, some crave guidance, some crave belonging, and some crave opportunity. Your task is to position yourself as the source of whatever it is they cannot live without. If they need clarity, you must become the person who makes the complicated simple. If they need strength, you must become their pillar when the world feels unstable. If they need vision, you must become the one who shows them the future they want to reach. When you become the answer to their greatest need, they stop resisting your influence and start seeking it. Control tries to dominate the will of others, but quiet influence works with it. Instead of forcing them down a path, you make your path the most appealing one. You do not have to push them, you simply remove obstacles and create incentives, so that walking in your direction feels natural. This is why necessity is so powerful. It is not an external force pressing down, it is an internal realization pulling them toward you. They act in alignment with your desires, because doing so keeps their life moving forward, and over time, this alignment becomes habit. The most skilled power players in history understood this distinction. They rarely barked orders or threatened punishment unless absolutely necessary. Instead, they made themselves the key that unlocked what others wanted most. When someone holds the key to your progress, you do not need to be told to stay close to them. You do it on your own. This is how you create a form of power that is invisible but unshakable. The person under its influence may even believe they are acting entirely out of their own will, never realizing that the conditions that led them there were quietly shaped by you. Another advantage of quiet influence over control is that it creates less visible resistance. Open control often makes enemies, those who openly resent your authority and actively look for ways to undermine it. Influence built through necessity, however, is hard to fight against, because it is woven into the fabric of someone's daily life. It is not a prison they can see, it is an ecosystem they rely on. To fight it would be to destabilize themselves, and most people will not sabotage their own well-being just to prove a point. But cultivating this kind of influence requires patience and discipline. You cannot force necessity too quickly or too aggressively, or you risk exposing your hand and triggering the very resistance you are trying to avoid. Instead, you build it slowly, brick by brick. You become consistent, reliable, and present in the moments when your presence matters most. You provide solutions, guidance, and advantages at critical junctures, so that over time, others associate you with their own survival and progress. By the time they realize how central you have become, you are already too deeply embedded to be removed without consequence. You must also resist the temptation to flaunt your influence. Quiet power is most effective when it remains unspoken. The moment you brag about how much others rely on you, you shift from being a necessity to being a threat, and people begin to resent you. The power of necessity is that it feels natural, like gravity. No one resents gravity, because it is simply there, shaping reality. Your influence should feel the same, unavoidable, invisible, and constant. This approach not only keeps others close, but it also protects you. When you rely on control, you must constantly enforce it, which drains your energy and keeps you in a permanent battle with resistance. Influence frees you from this struggle. Once necessity is in place, the system sustains itself. People begin to police themselves, to stay in line with what you represent, because it benefits them to do so. This is why quiet influence is far more sustainable than open control. It does not require endless maintenance. Ultimately, the goal is not to dominate others, but to create a relationship in which they cannot imagine moving forward without you. You are not the jailer, you are the bridge. You are not the wall that confines them, you are the road that carries, and as long as they see you as the road, they will walk it willingly, never noticing that every step is taking them in the direction you always intended. This is how necessity becomes the silent hand guiding their choices, shaping their priorities, and ensuring that you remain at the center of their world, not by force, but by design. Independence gives you leverage, but selective interdependence keeps others invested in you, because true power is a balance between being free enough to walk away and connected enough that others cannot afford to let you go. Independence is the foundation of strength. It allows you to make choices without desperation, to negotiate without fear, and to hold your position without clinging. A person who is completely dependent on others for validation, survival, or direction has no leverage, because they must constantly appease in order to remain in place. Independence frees you from this trap. When you can survive on your own, when you can create your own opportunities, you stop begging for acceptance. This alone makes people treat you differently, because they know you are not easily manipulated. Independence makes your yes valuable, and your no unshakable. But independence alone is not enough if you want lasting influence. The danger of total independence is that it can isolate you. If you stand too far apart, people stop seeing you as part of their world, and if they stop seeing you as connected to them, they stop feeling invested in your success. This is where selective interdependence becomes essential. You must allow others to feel that they play a role in your journey, that they have a stake in keeping you where you are. If you are too distant, too untouchable, they may admire you, but they will not protect you. To build lasting power, you must create a sense of shared destiny, not with everyone, but with the right people. Selective interdependence means choosing carefully who you allow into your circle of necessity. It means creating mutually beneficial bonds, where both sides have something to lose. If the relationship is broken, this is very different from blind dependence, where you give your trust or your needs away recklessly. Instead, you tie yourself strategically to those who can amplify your position, while ensuring that they also gain enough from you that they want to keep you close. You do not let them own you, you let them invest in you. And just like any wise investor, once they have invested, they have a reason to see you grow, to protect your interests, to defend you when you are not present. Machiavelli would remind us that alliances are not built on love or sentiment alone, they are built on mutual benefit. People are loyal when loyalty serves them. Selective interdependence uses this truth to your advantage. You give just enough of yourself, your insight, your support, that they see keeping you close as profitable. You create situations where your success is tied to theirs, where your progress advances their progress. This makes it dangerous for them to sabotage you, because in harming you, they would harm themselves. At the same time, you keep enough independence that you can survive even if they turn against you, which ensures that they never fully control you. One of the greatest mistakes ambitious people make is becoming too self-sufficient and refusing all help, thinking this keeps them strong. In reality, refusing connection can make you expendable. People do not fight for what they do not feel connected to. If you are completely outside of their network of benefit, they can remove you without hesitation. Selective interdependence ensures that removing you becomes costly. They would have to give up the advantages you bring, the doors you open, the problems you solve. This is why some of the most powerful individuals in history always created webs of mutual obligation. They were free enough to stand alone if necessary, but wise enough to ensure they rarely had to. Selective interdependence also humanizes you. If you are completely detached, people may see you as cold, even threatening. But when you allow some vulnerability, when you occasionally rely on others in a way that flatters their ego or strengthens their sense of purpose, you draw them closer. People love to feel needed, and if you never let anyone support you, you deprive them of that satisfaction. When you ask for the right kind of help, the kind that does not weaken you, but deepens their emotional stake, you make them feel important. This emotional investment ties them to you even more tightly than logic ever could. Still, you must be careful never to let this interdependence turn into actual weakness. If you lean too heavily on someone, you give them the power to pull the rug from under you. The balance is in being able to accept help without being owned by it. You remain in control of the connection. You know what you are giving and what you are receiving, and you maintain enough leverage that if necessary, you can step back and rebuild without collapsing. This balance keeps respect alive. They know you appreciate them, but they also know you do not need them so desperately that they can disrespect you without consequence. The beauty of this dynamic is that it creates a self-sustaining loop. Your independence makes others respect you, but your selective interdependence makes them protect you. Together, these two forces create a position of quiet security. People see you as strong, but also as valuable to their own well-being. They may not always agree with you, but they will hesitate to harm you, because harming you would harm themselves. This is far more powerful than trying to control others outright, because it turns them into willing participants in maintaining your position. Selective interdependence also allows you to shape the environment around you without appearing domineering. By giving others a role in your success, you create allies instead of subjects. They will defend you when attacked, advocate for you in rooms you are not in, and work to keep you where you are because they see their own future tied to yours. This is why it is so important to give them a stake. People protect what they feel belongs partly to them. If you can make your progress their progress, they will fight for you with a passion you could never buy. Power that lasts is never built on noise, force, or constant struggle. It is built on quiet positioning, deliberate scarcity, and carefully cultivated necessity. Becoming dangerously valuable is not about controlling others, but about becoming so integral to their progress that your absence feels like a threat to their stability. It is about giving just enough to be relied upon, holding back enough to be respected, and mastering yourself so completely that you are never desperate for their approval. You become rare, you become essential, and you allow others to tie their future to yours willingly. The result is a form of power that does not have to shout to be felt, that does not have to demand obedience, because obedience becomes the natural choice. The person who achieves this balance no longer chases loyalty, loyalty chases them. This is the Machiavellian way to make others invest in you, to ensure their success is tied to your presence, and to remain free enough to walk away if the game no longer serves you. When you live like this, you stop fighting to be seen, and start becoming impossible to ignore.